Welcome to the Black Appalachian Coalition's podcast entitled Black Remembering, where we will bring to you the heavy and the hope across the Ohio River Valley. We want to remember who we are, where we've come from. We want to speak to the oral history of what we've done, what we've achieved. We want to speak to the ills that we have experienced while also finding solutions to those problems, those issues. We want to deal with the narrative that has kept us deeply rooted in despair. Now we want to punch through that narrative and stand up and say, we are remembering our Black past, and we are rooted, and we are here to stay. Welcome to Black Remembering. We hope that you find your place, your space, and your voice in this podcast.
Hello, hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Black Remembering podcast, where we highlight the heavy and the hope. As y'all know, tax season is upon us. And I don't know about y'all, but tax season and all things tax related brings up a lot of complex feelings for me. I don't understand taxes, and most of my loved ones don't understand them either. There seems to be a barrier of knowledge that isn't offered in schools. So, for the next few months, we'd like to offer our listeners the Tea on Taxes series, where we will demystify taxes. The Tea on Taxes series focuses on honest conversations with community members about their relationship with finances, economics, and taxes, followed by conversations and info sessions with Black tax experts who are kind enough to offer their knowledge to our audience. This episode of the Tea on Taxes series is more of a community listening session. You will hear the voice of one anonymous speaker, and they will share their story with us. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and jump in on the questions. The first being, when I say the term taxes, what words, thoughts, visions, and phrases come to mind?
Thoughts of W-2s, of TurboTax, federal and income taxes, things of that such. 1099 forms.
What do any of those words, thoughts, phrases mean to you?
It means making sure that when it comes to things like my W-4, it accurately accounts for the amount of people in my household as well as my income, so that when I do file my taxes, I won't have instances where I owe like the state some money. That's not fun. Rather than owe me some money.
Thank you, thank you. So, what were you taught growing up about taxes, and who taught you what you know?
I was taught that tax season was an important season and that you couldn't just trust anyone to help you file your taxes and understand how they filed them. And I learned all this from my mom, who is a tax expert.
The stark difference is pretty amazing, because you started off by mentioning like the W-4 will reflects like how many people in your household and whether or not that's accurate. And the listening sessions I've conducted so far have all involved folks who didn't have anyone in their close circle, or even in their nuclear family, who knew anything about taxes. So I think that difference is really, really significant. Was there a certain point or a certain age where you were taught taxes, or was it just something that was always in the household?
That's a funny question because I always joke with her that she never taught me. Whereas, like, my older siblings, they did sit down and quote unquote learn at some point. But I just remember always being surrounded by taxes from January to April and sometimes beyond, because people contact my mom late or they have to get other things done before they're able to file. So, in a way, I indirectly learned by watching her and just being in the room sometimes, but I didn't actually get taught until a year or two ago.
And when you got taught, was that her sitting down with you to teach you?
It was actually my best friend, who was another tax expert, but she learned, and it's something I low key regret. If I had a few regrets from undergrad, this would be one because they had a class that not only taught you how to like file taxes and all of the proper terms and whatnot, but it also challenged you to like go out in the community, actually help community members and apply what you learned. So she was one of those kids back in undergrad, and she did mine once, but we promised that it would only be that one time. So after that, I had to learn.
That is awesome. I rarely hear about high school and colleges that offer these kinds of classes. So I'm really glad you had that experience. What was the mood around tax season in your household growing up? And I'm talking about, was there a tax return? If so, did that improve or darken the mood around your household?
So tax season, I would say, was always an anxious, stressful season when it came to like I was a kid. So my mom getting her return. I know from experience, like my cousins, some friends' households, that's the time your mom's like, oh, when I get my check, we'll go get this, that, and the other after I do A, B, and C. But my mom was always very clear. Her money is her money. So I had no expectation, if you will, for like what the tax money would be used for. So it wasn't like a make or break decision. It's just knowing, oh, for this period of time, she'll have a little more money.
Got you. Thank you. So, was there any sort of a shift as you became an adult around your feelings around taxes?
As an adult, my feelings is that again, not to make it like this reward treat thing, make it something to wait for. Like I know some people are always excited about tax season. Like I'm about to come into this extra money, and when I do, I'm gonna get this, that, and the other. For me, it's more so being in the mindset that is this extra money is something to be like divvied out long term, saving and applying it for like future trips as opposed to quick fixes or incentives for myself.
So, if you could ask a tax expert one question about taxes, what would it be?
It would likely be how to best invest your tax refunds. Investment and saving is something that's like always been said since I was little, but not something necessarily I've done. I think Childish Gambino said it the best, where it's like when you're poor, it's harder to think long term in investment because you're just trying to get by day, month by month.
What's your thought process when you fill out onboarding paperwork like W-2s when you're starting a new job?
Nah, I'm stressed. I'm like, am I filling this out correctly? I don't need nobody coming back and saying I owe them this, that, and the other because I said I got 9 dependents. I not really, but like making sure things are accurately reflecting so it doesn't come back. IRS is not my friend.
Does your HR person ever offer any advice or help at all during this onboarding process?
I've yet to meet one who did. So that was always a period in time that I was stress calling my mother and having her review it before I submitted it. So no,
What barriers do you think currently exist in our society, in our communities, when it comes to education around taxes?
I think access to the resources, I think that will be the biggest barrier. Not everyone has someone who is knowledgeable of like taxes and how to accurately file and all the things to do after. But again, that's an access issue. You could say, oh, you could YouTube it and go to YouTube University and, just use the free TurboTax online. But YouTube University isn't for everyone. You can't always find a way to break it down to you in a way that makes you understand.
I've been seeing, of course, more and more tax related commercials now. One of them, I don't remember what it's called. I just remember that all the marketing is purple, but they were basically saying like capitalizing on people not knowing and people not wanting to know or people being stressed about trying to know. And I feel like that's a huge barrier as well. The resources and the access and the intention being turned into a profit
Hmm.
for larger companies. What do you wish the conversation around taxes looked like or included?
So one of my recent debates is like which platform is the best to use for filing. There's a lot of free services out in the world, but there are also some paid ones. And just trying to get a poll and sense of like which one could be the best and something, a platform I can stick to long term. But I wish the conversation looked more like a dialogue, a back and forth, as opposed to intimidation that can sometimes make the conversation more of a lecture, if you will. Whereas if it was a dialogue, I feel like people would be able to voice their concerns, even if their concerns are like quote unquote unnecessary, unrealistic. At least they feel like it's a safe place to be honest and open about the things they're concerned about and the questions they have
Thank you.
without feeling pressured to use your service specifically.
And also without being feeling shamed
Hmm.
for, for not knowing what you don't know.
Yes, I was just about to say for not knowing or remembering in my case.
What do you think the world of taxes is going to look like in the future?
I have to think about that one because I recently chose to remain to live under a rock.
That's fair. That's very fair.
So I know that like I'm aware that things are in the process of changing that will impact us. However, I'm not aware of the specifications, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that for now. Ignorance gonna be bliss today. I I don't think it will I'm thinking specifically about like my black community back home growing up because I'm no longer like surrounded by that mindset, but that mindset will always be the foundation of me, if you will. And I know for a lot of people back home, this season means I finally get an opportunity to quote unquote get a jump start on something in my life, you know. We This is the time where we're gonna go by that limit, okay, to drive around in because we need reliable transportation, even though that's not necessarily reliable. So I know a lot of them basically depend on this season. They depend on their return, regardless how big it's going to actually be. But I'm afraid that in the future, that's not something they'll be able to rely on the way people in like higher statuses will be able to.
So, based on our conversation today, what is one thought or one piece of information that you're going to take with you?
One thought is to more or less model that what I want to see in terms of starting the conversations and having the dialogues, give and take. I'm sure other people can offer me information just as I can offer them, but just making it a conversation nonetheless rather than something that people feel as though they have to go through alone and figure out on their own or
Yes,
pay someone to figure out. We can talk about it. And you can still pay somebody. By all means, get you an expert in your corner.
love it. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining this podcast and having this conversation. It's not one that a lot of folks may be willing to have. So I do appreciate you. Of
Thank you for having me.
course. So we're going to hear from some tax experts later on in the Tea on Taxes series. Tune in for more information and advice on demystifying taxes. If you have any thoughts or questions, go ahead and drop those. And please share this good news with your community. Until next time, peace and blessings, y'all.